Okay, welcome to the second installment of 100 Pictures of Honey. Tonight we have three fantastic readers for you, as we plan to do for every month this year. And we have Han VanderHart, Sara Wagner, and R.A. Villanueva. I asked these three people to read together because I think that despite their stylistic differences, to me, all of them are really masterful at articulating the kind of nuances of family, heritage, history, and also really good at showing what is sacred about living both in the present moment and in the shadow of the past. It's their work I look to teach me about those things. And the range of what these poets have accomplished is astounding, from book prizes to podcasts to journal editing to YouTube poems to parenting, which is a big accomplishment, and teaching middle school and homeschooling. All kinds of things are going on in their lives. And the fact that they are also not only astounding poets, but also really open and generous and kind human beings makes them very special. So tonight we're going to hear from those three readers. If you haven't been with us before, we ask that you stay muted during the readings, but feel free to use the chat, the emojis, if you're on camera, your jazz hands or clap or whatever you'd like to do to support our writers. If you do have questions, you can put them in the chat if we have time at the end. Hopefully we can get to some of those questions. Before each reader begins, I'll put their bio and a link to purchase one of their books in the chat so you can have that information. And at the end of the reading, I'll kind of wrap things up. I'll remind you where you can find us on social media. I'll preview who our March readers are, and then I'll also be placing a link if you care to support the series. I do pay my readers for their labor and time, a small bit, but it's something. So if you'd like to support that effort, I'll put that link up at the end of the reading. Without further ado, then, we are going to begin with Han VanderHart. So give me a moment here while I drop her information for you in the chat. I first quote unquote, met Han on Twitter and then purchased her book, What Pecan Light, which is a book that you want, trust me. And then was very lucky to be able to record a podcast with her last month. And it was just a lovely human conversation. And I felt like I had known her for years. And so without further ado, here we go. Han VanderHart, you can unmute yourself and read us whatever you like.
Oh, thank you, Donna. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. I switched on my podcast mic, but I don't have my headphones, so I feel like half of it won't work. I really love to begin my readings with a poem by another, usually Southern writer. So I am pulling a poem from Leonard Moore's The Geography of Jazz tonight. He's going to be a very soon future guest on Of Poetry. And Leonard Moore is a lifelong North Carolina poet and is just kind of an incredible presence in the Black poetry community in North Carolina and literary community. And I'm very excited for you to hear his poem soon if you haven't. And this poem's called Nina Simone Speaks to a Connoisseur. And one of the gorgeous things about this book is I've never read such beautiful writing about jazz. It's like Moore can write about music, which is such a hard thing to do, I think. And I would certainly never be able to do that, I don't think. Nina Simone Speaks to a Connoisseur. I sang my own cuts. I've worked with Don Pullen. Ben Riley drummed for me. I never wanted to be labeled. I confused your ear with difference. I wanted my vocals to be signature. I wanted to do Tryon proud. So right. Don't let me be misunderstood. Took me to a spiritual plane. Oh, I loved that piano. I know some folks call me feisty, but I wanted to extend my range, explore something as vast as a blue sky. And that's Leonard Moore's The Geography of Jazz from Blair, which is a North Carolina press. I don't have a plan. I know where one poem is that I want to read first, and we'll see where it goes. Why she wears hummingbirds on fishing line around her neck. And this is an important poem for this book because it's after Deborah Luster's Rosesucker Retableau from 1993, which is a photograph, and C.D. Wright also writes about this. So C.D. Wright does it first. I'm just copying and coming along behind. Why she wears hummingbirds on fishing line around her neck. Because her face is haunted and causes go so far back here. They scarcely bear the illusion or name of cause, material or formal. Rather, the birds are effects of living out of death. Mushrooms lifting from mycelium rings, invisible under the forest floor. Spores drifting in the air. A burr in an animal's coat. Her mouth tired like a fox's fur when mange takes over and it sheds, but doesn't reveal a new fox. Maybe the birds keep away snakes, like a snake hung in a tree keeps away drought by bringing on rain. Maybe cause and effect are dirt and sky and little else beyond. Here is the rain. It comes like a child, listening to no one but its own internal vein of weather. And that goes out to every single person who feels like they have been a lightning rod for the emotional needs of children. Okay, I know I'm going to read some new poems tonight. So maybe I'll read one more from What Pecan Light. Poem ending in a line from C.D. Wright. And this is when I kind of read it a lot, I think, because I really like the tradition of giving an account of yourself. And it's a big part, I think, in terms of having a faith tradition you're a part of, that you stand up and you give a testimony and you say what your life has been up until that point and why you're there. So this is a kind of poetic version of that. With a front yard mimosa pinking its boughs above the old truck, and the congregationalist urge to give account before witnesses, I write and talk at the park, telling my neighbor how Rebel War flag flies over Interstate 95. And he says, it's hard. People had family die in that war. And he doesn't mean Iraq or drones or the border our neighbors' children died to cross. No, he means the Civil War. But whose uncle or brother died at Appomattox? No one in my family remembers. I had to do the work of books to find what I did not want to find. History with its long, oppressive arm, its roll calls and musters, enlistment dates, pension records, Confederate applications for pardon. Isn't it enough? My fathers and uncles, my brothers, aunts, grandmother and grandfathers sprang from the South and have done the work of war. It is not enough. My mouth is small, a little bowl on a live oak. But when my neighbor says, who died? Doesn't he mean who is dying? And when he nods, says, oh yeah, people bitching, about the flag. I recollect the poet who said, to be ashamed is to be American. And that's what Pecan Light. I'm going to read a few poems from not my next book, but the one beyond that. That's called, right now it's called Sonatas for Wheat Fields, which is an over-the-top title. So I don't know if it'll stay, but I kind of like it. I'm really obsessed with ekphrastic poems in this book, and I kind of wrote a really hard book after What Pecan Light, dealing with family trauma and PTSD and stuff. And after that, I was like, you can write whatever you want to write. If you want to write about art all day, you can write about art all day. So that is what I have been doing, is writing about art all day. And it's been really fun. And especially ekphrastic poems with films, which I really love to do. I've never had my students do that before, but I think I'm gonna assign some more foreign film poems just for myself, my own pleasure. Okay, I'm going to read a couple poems that are self-portrait poems for Durer, because, you know, Durer painted the most beautiful self-portraits of himself. So this is self-portrait 1493. Durer would have seen a reason for living. And that is a line, of course, from Marion Moore. Durer would have seen a reason for living. In younger days, he was younger, red cap with red tassel, sprig of green thistle in his hands, almost betrothed, almost wrapped as the red cord wraps his shirt, as the red trim binds his doublet, paints his lips. All should practice bridal thinking of their bodies as Durer practiced in a convex glass, the perspective, gorgeous math of the self. And this is after his self-portrait, 1498. Durer would have seen a reason for living, for the clothes, for the braided strap connecting his cloak, for curls, for tassels, for the striped cap in its fold, for the bands of black, for the gathering smocking, for the gold trimming, for the white gloves, for Venice in the window, landscape adorning as pleats and colors adorn, as hands clasp over nothing but themselves, as eyes gaze at the viewer, as body is set in 3/4 angle. Oh, what beauty one person saw in themselves, Durer, and wrote it down. And this is for his self-portrait from 1500, which if you haven't looked these up, obviously you need to go look these up now. I especially love his attention to his hair. It's just amazing. Durer would have seen a reason for living in a time like this, knowing that after 500 years, we would stare into each other's eyes, mine like a town with 8-stranded whales, his amber or green, depending on the afternoon light, which falls on his curls so like Christ, the fingers of his right hand thrown almost in the gesture of a saint, but no, clasping his velvet doublets, fur mantle, formal as the self can be before the eyes of the self. The light glints off his polished nails. A small vein trembles on his hand. Not only are these poems not published, I don't even think I've read these like poems out loud to anybody. So you all are getting some some exclusive content. Donna, I know you're keeping track of the time. Do you know how many minutes I have left? Donna's so together. She's the most together person.
Between 5 and 7. I didn't look exactly at when you started.
Perfect. Okay, got it. Thank you. Sorry, I know that's disruptive to ask, but I literally, I can't pay attention to it, and I never want to run over. This is after Josephine Decker's 2014 Southern Gothic-y film, Thou Wast thou wast, I can't, it sounds so odd to say, thou wast mild and lovely. Wast. Wah. That's an incredible film. It's kind of disturbing. Anyways, thou wast mild and lovely, and the cows doe-eyed, the green oversaturated, lover and God were a thing apart, objects ordinary in the air, whisk, a chorus of hands, a pair of shears, lay down in the grass, let the cows wander through the fence in need of mending. How is life so slow in the country and death so fast? Moments go on like snapping beans, and then the steel bowl overturns with a clatter, beans everywhere. I know I have some more film poems in here. But here's also Self-Portrait with a Field and Share. And this is after C.D. Wright's poem, Self-Portrait with, maybe it's just Self-Portrait. No, you'll hear what poem it's after. I am the bull, hand by name, nay 18 May, domesticated since the 8th century before Jesus, a goat. We have served as a source of meat, bone, leather, and milk. Our flesh is widely loved. Our tender inner parts make tennis racket strings. Out of our hair, softest felt, brushes for magistrates' wigs. Our bones are good for dice. We share these gifts with Sherilyn Sarkisian. I don't know how to pronounce Cher's last name, who gained national prominence for her distinctive contralto voice and the hit single Believe. We're no sloth, working, childcare, cleaning, teaching online. We've had an annual income last year of less than your average subway musician. Our horoscope assures we will be a great success at groundedness, working at a bank, at accounts, or as a forest ranger, a florist, a chef. We are heavy-footed, happy in fields. We live best with good grazing. This week's victuals, cinnamon rolls and long walks, a beer with orange slices. Our small stacks of writing fall under the heading of useful byproducts. This we call freelance. Shakespeare is one of us, wise-eyed, hedonistic, horned. And I will pick one more poem. It's so much fun having a new manuscript with new things. Okay. I never really know what's in the manuscript too. Like I haven't spent that much time with it. So anyways. Okay, I'll read a short poem and then one more. Woman peeing in a barn. Is Edith Gowan, the photographer's wife, is backlit by summer, is holding her white cotton gown up, his hands gathering at hip bones, his legs apart, his head turned sideways, is relaxed, mouth parted, is letting her water flow on the barn floor, is releasing what she can. And I'll read you a nude poem, Zinaida Serebryakova's Reclining Nudes. So a Russian artist who very much resisted. I can't remember. It's like the art. It's like the visual arts equivalent of like brutalist architecture. I can't remember what it's called because I'm not an art historian. So she painted these gorgeous nudes. I mean, they're just incredible. And yeah. Anyway, I can't look away from the female gaze, embedded in breast, in pantyless backside turned to the viewer. The backgrounds fade to blue, sketch shadows as cotton dress opens, falls away, rounded hip, Sweet V, the ease of hand on inner thigh. After looking, I can't unsee the way a woman reclines before another woman. Futurist style of the Soviets, be damned. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Han. Look at that, everybody. Exclusive content. I think I remember you posting about some of that art on Twitter. So to hear the poems is really incredible. And it's always brave to read new work that you haven't read before. So we appreciate you doing that. Again, thank you. If you have any questions, remember for later for Han, feel free to put them in the chat. But we're gonna move on then to Sara. I'll put Sara's information in the chat. And I've been following Sara's work online for quite some time, and again, we become kind of Twitter pals. And then this year she has had her writing has just exploded. I think Sara, what you have two different book prizes, and just won a grant from the state of Ohio, and a chapbook coming out, and it's like this plethora of Sara that we're all going to be very lucky to get very soon and be able to have in our own hands. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what she's going to share with us tonight. So without further ado, it is Sara Moore Wagner.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with all of you in this space here for tonight. So like Donna said, all of a sudden things have started happening for me, which is really weird. I spent like years submitting my manuscripts thinking this is never going to happen for me. And then in 1 week, the same week, they both won. It was weird. It was very crazy. But tonight, I'm going to read from my chapbook that's coming out from Redbird Chapbooks, which Donna also has a great chat from them. So I'm going to read a few poems, and then just as Han did, I'm going to read some new stuff from the new manuscript and debut it for the first time. So this book, Tumbling After, is it shares a few poems in common with my book Swan Wife, but it takes a different turn. So Swan Wife and this book have a few angry housewife poems, basically. But this one is about dissolving my first relationship. And then the Tumbling After is kind of the idea of learning to share your child with someone you're no longer with. So I'll read a few poems from that, and then I'm going to move to Annie Oakley poems. So just like Han, I got tired of talking about myself, and I decided to just obsessively research Annie Oakley. So I'm going to debut her a little bit today too. So I'll start with Tumbling After. Okay. Like I won't take something from you. I bounced to you in the back of my father's truck, over the gravel roads stretching into the cornfields. So late in the evening, no one was outside on the porch, swinging in the night. Only the crickets and cicadas, the lambs bleating, my father, lit cigarette ashing back into my hair. You say you love my hair, how golden it is, like new hay rolled into tiny suns. The ones we pass on the road now, I next to you in your brand new car. How my hair looks almost copper, like pipes. Listen, I still feel that lit bit of ash, the ember flung back, how my hair was on fire, the truck was on fire, my father still driving with guns and roses so loud he couldn't hear or feel me rolling around, that I turned into a combine harvester, my teeth horizontal and so straight. This is how I came to wear my hair like this, the way you love it, the way it blows in the evening wind, almost like ready stalks. Okay, this one is called Getting My Body Back, and it has an epigraph from Perrault's Donkey Skin, which is, by chance he put his eye to the keyhole. It was a feast day, and Donkey Skin had put on her dress of gold and diamonds. The prince was breathless at her beauty, her youthfulness, and her modesty. In the middle of the night, I go into the butcher shop, through a keyhole in the back door. The one so stained red it looks rusted, splattered like the bottom of the toilet my son uses, and, bodiless, I call into the air ducts, use some aim, why don't you? In the middle of the night, I go through a hole in a door to get my body back. Imagine someone looking through the keyhole, that I try each skin like a dress, each one lovelier than the next. Stables in the heart open, they're running, chant beauty, beauty, beauty. Like nothing ever happened to my body, like I never hatched open from the crotch, unlatching, splintered, torn. Here, when I get my body back, there are no fingerprints on the hems, no. And didn't he promise, after I lost it, to help me get it back or find another? And didn't I seek myself in every coral grotto or pearl? Nothing looks the same. Who are you? I've put on my moon dress in the butchered light, discarded the tired skin I wore the night you stopped wanting me. And my mother tells me no one will believe something beautiful is inside something so frightful. And when I put on my new body, looking in, you might say, I see you, and at last it will be so. This one's called Shared Parental Agreement. I wake up because I hear myself crying. I think it is my son, but he's hard asleep with the fan finding a beat like a flat wheel. Above him, a face blooms in a bubble of breath. His father is building a house. He asks me, why won't you live like this? Little heart, come curl in it. Then maybe forgive me or collapse the emptying. Fill every vein or word. If you want to know why I pretend, we are two lonely blades on the ceiling of this room. Our son's breath turns it, his split breath. Okay, this one's called Visitation Schedule. When I walk our son to your door, we watch the road for bits of skull, teeth, debris. Someone has dropped a baby bottle full of milk and it's not curdled. How strange. Our son points out the shoes, some kid size, some high tops, pointed toe stilettos. There aren't any matches, he says. Who walks with one shoe? The Impusa do, I say. Daughters of Hecate, red-haired, one-legged. How many times I've hobbled like this, back and forth, collecting this child like a mouthful of blood. And if you imagine I'm taking more than I deserve, more time for myself, I want to bury something, eyes glued to this stone path, sidewalk. Let me find a fresh body to drag to your house, to leave on your doorstep, a gift to replace him, a gift to fix it. Okay, I'll read one more from this and then switch on to Ohio's favorite daughter, Annie Oakley. Okay, this last one's called Division of Assets. Sometimes a woman leaves a man and she takes something, the ceramic cups they bought at Pier 1, the new suede couch, a bottle of Merlot, the child she thought she'd never have, full-cheeked and blonde, takes him like a lipstick from the display case into her pocket like Tom Thumb. You won't miss him, she'll say. And anyway, you can have the car, the house. And isn't he so small, not even a bird would seek him out? And doesn't he belong here in the folds of me? Isn't the world just too large? And aren't you the one who placed him within me like a communion wafer? How Apollo would argue the bond between her and the child on these terms exactly, that a mother is only a vessel, that a son carries the body of the father over his own bones, that no matter what you do, you cannot leave him. You'll never get him out so clean or whole. Yeah. So I'll move on to something a little more yeehaw here and read you some Annie Oakley. Like I said, I was drawn to Annie because she's from Ohio. Also, my mother, who's here, was a sharpshooter too. So there's some family connection there that I was interested in. But mostly it was the pandemic and I got very obsessed with research. So I'm gonna read you some of these poems, which also explore kind of the American myth and guns in America in general. So, okay. This first one's called Little Sure Shot. She threw her birth name, Phoebe Ann Moses, like a fat rock into the creek. Never one for Moses, all that narrative bullshit, king of the enslaved. She wanted a name to move more than sea, more than stone tablets down. She chose Oakley, strip malled near Cincinnati, Oakley, of the oak tree, like any oak tree, like one of the 500 varieties, dense and resistant to infestation of any kind. Annie Oakley, born of Moses, prophet and deliverer, lawgiver. Her father laid a gun in her hand, said, shoot. Her father was a gun. Her father was a road. Her father was a dying man, was so like Moses, rock in hand. Her father was a rock in hand, was split-headed, was a split head, and not Moses, but God was that light. What does it mean? She traded Phoebe from Phoebus, from Apollo, man of the sun, son of the gods, for Annie, simple measure of grace, a name, Annie Oakley, of the trees, diminutive and favored, little sharp branch poking holes in the sky. This one's called To Be a Girl in a Man's World. We play with cat pistols. Bang, bang, those pills of red wax. Rapid fire blister packs we unroll into the barrel. Be the best cowboy on the block. Never cowgirl, always boy in jeans and flannel shirts tucked up or tied in the front. We perform this bit of our own gendering, belly and a gun, just to let the boys know where to find us when it's over. We with our rifles and legs and pow pow, tamed as a frontier. Wild rabbits, ladylike, even in the fields of Ohio, stretching and flexing like we could be anything but colonized as the Wild West we hearken back to in the ways we all want a beginning. A country made by unrolling, red and waxy and pow. A communal identity founded on wanting more than what we already claimed for ourselves. More than what was given in a cradle, a name. Pushing those lines, we are still family-friendly portraits of girls playing at the real world. Masked shadows on the wall, remote control boats, petite saviors waiting for dollar or bell to say, come in, it's time to come in. In the end, we'll let you know it was all a show with a hip thrust, ta-da, girls do. Curtsy and stage kiss. This harmless act of love, this gun in my little hands is never an affront. I'm coy as a clay pigeon. I stand for nothing but this. This one's called Annie Oakley's Bullet Inventory. Her first bullet she buried under the cypress, and it grew into a lace dress she put on to show her mother, who was, at that time, a shining image of the second bullet, pristine and tall, slender as the beams, holding up the little room where she slept curled like a mole with her sisters and brothers. Her mother was not always a bullet. Before she was 6, her mother was soft. Her third bullet was the rabbit she shot to feed her mother. It did not even run from her, looked so planted it could have been a blossom she plucked from the fat earth. She was hungry. Her mother was hungry, her sisters. Bullets are not easy to come by. Then the cooing mourning dove, the gray speckled sky, the white fence, which was a bullet, which she would take in her back pocket to England, plant to say, I've claimed this land in the name of America. Then the world was a bullet and she sat side saddle like a lady, proper enough to ride without a single glance, to make every glance a bullet, to catch it in her teeth, fit it into a rifle, fire over her shoulder, somewhere out of sight, and hit just where she was aiming, hit right at the spine, so each target bowed and transformed, folded into itself, neat as a blanket, neat as a dress. She'd hold up to the light to say, yes, this is mine. I made this. Okay, I think I have 2 more. Do I have time for 2 more, Donna? Yes, okay. And then that's it. So this one's called When a Girl Looks into the Water. It's the desire to make the self a character, sell pelts and turkey whistles, songs written, feet dangled over the bridge, staring down into the creek where the sun looks like rhinestones, turns into rhinestones shaped like cactuses and wagon wheels. The sun makes me a jacket I can slip on and flip open. The shadow in lines through the trees makes me a banjo I pick to the beat of the water bugs plopping in and out, to the sound of the mosquitoes I smack from my knee. I'm not at the top of anything, so I let the wind shape my hair, blow it high as cotton candy. I'm a regular vision of success in these parts, can mosey up to any bar, play any song, a murder ballad plucked long and mean. I make the gallows ropes to swing. I'm going to make something of myself, I say to the trees, to the mud of that creek, to the crawdads and snakes hissing. You can be anything. I could cut off all this hair, grow my limbs longer, be that noose they'll use to hang me when they find out what I've done to myself. With style. I've done it with style, I'll say. With the stars above me, I've pulled down for these tall boots to make them shine, the way they paint the houses and fences out on the range to reflect the light. You can make anything, you can make everything lovelier, better, with some paint, even the grain, decorate. I have been fixing to leave since the moment I saw myself in the water, coming out of the water like a goddamn second moon, and I thought, I too can move. I can do it too. Make my bed wherever I want to rest, make even the desert soft, the mustangs and ranches and wide-brimmed hats bend at my feet. I'm nothing of what I was. Like God, I ignore the smaller things. I transform minnows into diamonds I pin into my ears, cattle hearts I tear with my teeth, gold-capped and shining like little pinpricks of light. I can do more than you think, with a song in me so loud, with a voice round and long and ready to unshape even a lit campfire, make it a blaze I'll use to boil every body of water, purify it into something I'll drink all of, every last drop. Okay, this is the very last one. This is called What Annie Oakley Knew. And this kind of goes into the future a little bit, which is what some of the poems at the end of the manuscript do. The big yellow moon, strung low above the tree line in the morning, looked like a second sunrise to the girl in the field with her gun. And it said, I know what will come. What you intend is never the same as what happens. The flowers push little buds through the muck, have been to the other side of the world and under, where father is laid. There is no rest. And her gun, though it was not living, looked her straight in her hazel eye, coughed a smoke that turned to a meadowlark. I will grow up, said the smoke, leave you out. Tell me what men do, have done. The Bible says, love mercy, but not in the same way the earth speaks, or the gun, not by holding her quiet head in its hands. There can be two sunrises, one where a girl is barefoot, hunting the last little rabbit to bring home to her widowed mother, and one where the girl is the rabbit, and she's older now, working in a gas station or grocery store, and bam, open fire, lineage. What should I, the girl says, to the chipping bark on the hickory tree, and the cicadas burrow deep below her, hear her, rise, chirp, one loud sorrow she interprets to mean it's coming, no matter what you do. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. These sneak previews tonight are knocking me dead. I cannot wait to see more of these poems in the world. And also can't wait to hear more poems from Ari Villanueva. I have to just say that every time a new poem of yours appears online, it's like a drop everything and read moment for me. We have met briefly in the real life, and it was a perfect example of your kind and generous nature. That it was at the Poetry Carnival in Indianapolis, and I was by myself, and I bought your book, and I was blown away by your poems, and you were very kind, and we found out we both taught middle school, and we sat down and had just such a lovely conversation. And everything about your work I'm a fan of. So our last reader for tonight, Ari Villanueva.
Hey everybody, you can hear me, yeah? We're all good? Cool. Thank you everyone for being here, and thank you all the fellow readers and Donna, and it's been a long time since I've read, and yeah, I kind of am a little bit disoriented in the kind of intimacy of this moment. Like, you're not here at the same time, but you're really present with all the work, and the poems tonight have just been astonishing. I'm gonna read the last poem from Reliquaria, and then I'm also gonna read all new stuff. I feel like I wasn't, and then I'm like, what else can I do? Like if you go last, you kind of have to continue the thing. So I'll read the last poem of this, and then all new stuff from what I hope will be something. Mine will be a beautiful service. 1. When you bury me, fold my arms neat over the plateau of a double-breasted suit, the angle of the lapel matching my now permanent expression. Pressed and chemical, I will look content, but confused, as when you watched me turn in my sleep, dreaming of a Golgotha in beeswax, a coffin for swallows, a toothless augur reading the flights and cries of owls. You will hear the cadence of my voice, the snapping oblique of my laugh. Among the votives and canticles, you will trace with the tips of your thumbs lines of demarcation between the fallow of my scalp and the dunes of my forehead. Quiet, you will paste stray hairs back into their place. 2. Memento mori. All sod and taproot now, all bulb and tuber and stem shoot. Mulch throb, lush with worms and slugs, we are never worth more than this. Thrum of the earth, clatter bulge of cicada shells along a coffin's hinges, teak and scented cedar flushed with compost, an elegy of rot, this counterfeit reliquary. If you each day clutch our pillows, press them to your face, pray to take in some atom of me all into the hollows of your chest, yes, I promise my ghost will find you should you want someone else to love. So that was a love poem. Promise and threat of a love. And I wanted to read and kind of continue this. I'm working on a new manuscript, and it's close. And I teach middle school, and a couple of years ago, we had a Valentine's Day reading thing with all the kids, like they were reading love poems, and someone found out my secret identity, and they said I should write a poem, and I thought, like, I have nothing in this book that is appropriate for 6, 7, and 8-year-olds. And so I wrote something for them, and it came on the commute up from Brooklyn up to the Bronx where I teach. It's about an hour and a half, maybe 2-hour long subway ride when the subway was something you could take. And this is called Devotional. Devotional. I am writing this to you among these strangers on the 2 train because you sometimes laugh that you would love for me to write a poem for you, and not that other kind of thing that I often do, that elliptical, art-thick wandering that delays I love you for well after the spectacle, or the heart-fraught rhyme, the cave cathedral, a painted scroll bound with locks of hair. How easy it is to lose track of the truth, the marrow of you and I together all these beautiful years. I love you. I am tapping with my thumbs as someone's grandmother snores beside me, clutching bodega plastic, a weathered Bible. I love you, I am saying now in my head, opening my eyes to find myself looking face to face at a child eating his corn muffin, punching his sister in the arm. Last night in the fog of a fever and stress headaches, all I wanted was soup. Its slivers of roast pork, its green onions, and the warmth of broth in my chest. And last night you filled our last clean bowl and held it in a towel, touched my forehead, and said, here you go. At this stop, I transferred to the 1 which slides local up into the Bronx for what feels like hours. Let me tell you again, without ornament, and for only you and I to hear in my voice, I love you. So this new manuscript is really populated by my children. I think Xavier just popped up on the screen down there too. They're like in the other room. So there he is. And so it's like really populated by them. And so in the midst of quarantine, when it first started, I think X was in kindergarten, and he had this assignment to from the winter to the spring. It was called the spring spot, and we would walk out on our daily walks and just watch the seasons change in this one spot. And if you remember all the way back then, we used to check in on each other. Remember, we used to text each other, be like, "How you doing? Are you okay? Are you doing all right?" And I think we should have. I hope you're still doing that. But this was a poem that is after Safia El-Hillo. El-Hillo, who was a dear friend of mine and who had this poem that has the same title, and the title is "For My Friends in Reply to Your Question." For my friends in reply to your question, after Safia El-Hillo. We are making it through, yes, but barely. What we have now is at least an everyday, some bewildering dance where we keep time with each other. My son has chosen a corner of our street where we're meant to track the neighborhood's drifting into spring. He watches a vine creep along the brick face. He notes with pastels and gel pens, its roots clawing into the mortar, a lone bumblebee in its fat orbit around nearby blossoms. He tends to his own green onions in a jar of dye and water, sketches an experiment to test if color will disappear into the air. Nothing is ever all gone, he says, gently drowning his small cactus that he carried home from a bodega before it shuttered for good. Later, he will miss the names of everyone we miss. Later, he will sing happy birthday to a cousin across the Palisades, to an uncle 3 stops away on the F, to a family friend out west as we gather by the light of screens around a dinner table at a house my parents hope to give away. We leave Brooklyn for here. This lawn I had to mow in the summer, this backyard where grandpa nursed tomatoes and green beans, where my brother and I pressed rocks into the earth, flicked pill bugs onto their backs. I've tried to tell my son these stories, but he was chalking the driveway, throwing tennis balls at windows, pouring bubble solution into flower beds. No one has slept here in months. And I've spent these first hours home paging through albums while my daughter rolls among the quilts and pillows of the living room. She laughs while I take her hands to cup them to my ears, when I tickle the ridges of her ribcage, when we call her name with soft percussive notes, whisper boom, boom, boom in triplet. You could never imagine my hair this long. Every photograph and keepsake sits covered in dust. I saw my daughter's name is Penelope, and she's named after the wife of Odysseus, who is the title character of the Odyssey, the poem by Homer. And a couple of last year, I was asked to take part in this really wonderful podcast project called Bedtime Stories at the End of the World. It's based in the UK, and they ask writers to reimagine myths. And so, of course, I reimagined the myth of, well, not reimagined, but I was thinking a lot about Penelope. And I read a couple of translations in a row, and I read some Margaret Atwood, and I was just thinking about, like, why did we name her after this character? And so this is a poem that kind of narrates the moment, the morning before Homer's Penelope's wedding day, when she didn't have any grief ahead of her, when her whole life was ahead of her. She had no idea what was in store for her, although we as the readers of the poem do. This is a wedding poem for Penelope, when the world seemed completely open and possible. It's called Epithalamy in Ithaca. Tell of the bride girl thinking of threadwork, dreaming of coronals, eagles, and ducks staring out to the sea. Morning after morning, touching her throat, counting the veins of her wrists, bracing for earthquakes. Sing of snail shells dipped in wine, in boiled figs, stacked in the stillness of a bedchamber painted with wax. That we know oracles gladly lie will not keep us from asking, so she asks into the dregs, into the blush and warp of sunrise, what will become of me? And the everything replies with corners amid omen. dead bees, 3 torn veils, rain, handmaids dressing burns, laughing into cups. There, past the grove of olive trees, a copse of poplar, cypress, past the tall fires and offering stones, the oxen and cliff face and potter kilns, look. His stables and storerooms of lavender, axe heads, wild goat cured with time. See there, his oarsmen flexing their legs, oiling their backs. See Sip's mast lashed with laurels, carved with owls. The pitch, thick, dark growing dark upon each hull, and the sails, broad, blooming, like a field of clouds falling in love with the tide. Down the corridor, someone is peeling citrus, sharpening their knives. Someone tunes strings, readies the dye for feathers, while she hums, braiding her hair. To the thrumming stars, the scrim of daybreak, she takes her name from her father's mouth, her mother's chest. She lifts it and breathes free, each syllable as if weaving into smoke who she was before their promises, before his oaths, his vows and signet rings, his hands around hers like a shroud. Penelope, she calls, remembering how these last weeks she would wade among low reeds, listening for the weightless drift of wings. Awake to gods of her own making, a universe luminous and spinning, reaching out its voice to meet hers without secrets or grief, only tenderness beyond surrender. And beyond the wrecks, beyond her grace and faith, wound true, then unraveling in turns, tears, battlements, arrowheads, and the harbor watch, beyond porticos and spider webs, beyond daughter or queen, mother or wife, Penelope, alone, counts juniper berries, presses them down with her thumb, tests a smile. Dare to imagine her happy, alive among all trembling miracles, bright with unruly gifts. Soon the phantoms and thieves will circle, soon the carrion birds and soothsayers' drums, and every small catastrophe laced with joy. But for now, she keeps dear her heart, holds it far from dawn. So I'm going to read one more poem. And this one is for my son, X. It's called Annus Mirabilis. And the phrase Annus Mirabilis in Latin means year of miracles. I wrote this. I wrote this right when he was sort of like a baby, and it's strange to read this now that he's older. And when you read the poem, you kind of have these flashes of that version of him that barely fit in my arm, and now repeatedly punches me on or about the esophagus for fun. Annus Mirabilis. He's like laughing in the other room, like laughing at that. Okay, Annus Mirabilis for X. From the shallows, our son watches me play dead. He sits on river rocks, chucking sand and bearing strawberries, while I float downstream, breath wound bright in the gut, a body both here and of other waters. The day he was born, midwives touched your face, your hands, tested nerve and pulse, dripped saline along your thigh, numbered blades. Their ceremony for the first cuts, before swaddling blankets, fever syrups, bath time and mud. These are places the boy is ticklish. Lunette of the earlobe, kneecaps, madrigal fat of his belly, collarbone, and toes. These words he knows but will not say. Yes, horse, sleep, white. Again, the boy cries himself hoarse as we sing through these hours right before dawn. First the alphabet, then twinkle, twinkle, little star, then the great pretender, our words like foxes, like milk teeth. We can't hold him quiet. His body must, they say, learn now about hunger, about being alone. So we hum and shh into the yellow bruise of Sunday. Melodies, the shape of bluets and yearlings, blood pudding, and this worry, this awe we have no name for. When he asks, make no mention of those names we say for the children we lost. His ghost siblings, their phantom initials. Of tests and lemongrass, nettle leaf and sharps, forms in triplicate, clinics painted with lambs, comets, maps to nerve meridians, hearts, say nothing. Never speak of that quiet after the kicking stopped. Believe in time, he'll learn ourselves betray each miracle and wild conundrum they're coded to bear. If he needs an answer, give him morning mass off West 16th, how aisle and chancel roared with lilies and cornets, how we dared a new unknown to find us there in song. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That is one of my favorite poems by you, and I've never heard you read it, and I'm weeping. Oh, you were all so incredible this evening. Thank you so, so much. I did have one question come through the chat, which is a pretty quick one. I think that would be great to ask just before we wrap things up. And that was if each one of you could recommend kind of a current favorite poetry collection, what would you recommend? So, Sara, Han, RA. Anybody have a recommendation for our audience?
Well, I just read Jose Hernandez Diaz's The Fire Eater, and it completely blew my whole brain apart. Just the way, I think he writes kind of opposite to me, but the fact that fact, I can't imagine how he can do what he does with language and with simple images and things like that. So I would say everyone should read that right now. Fire Eater.
Anybody else?
I would definitely recommend Glennis Redmond's, I want to say it's What the Hands Say. I would have to, because it's another North Carolina poet, but really, really incredible. What My Hands Say.
What, Glennis Redmond?
I'll pop it in chat.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
And Ari, what about you? You have a current
Yeah,
favorite?
the book that pops into my mind is a book called All the Names Given by Raymond Antrobus, who is a British poet that I admire very, very, very much. It's his second book. His first book is called The Perseverance, and both of them just do such amazing things with imagery and memory and history, both personal as well as quote unquote cultural history, whatever that might mean. Collective history, maybe another way of putting it. Yeah, but Raymond Antrobus's work.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you so much for being here, audience, and the three of you. Such incredible readings. And, tell your friends, this series gets exclusive content, from our poets, that maybe that'll become our new thing. If you would like to continue to follow and support the series, I'm going to put our social media handles in the chat, as well as the PayPal link if you'd like to help support us paying our readers. Our March readers, one of them is in the audience tonight. Our March readers include or are Inez Pujos, Amora Huey, and Taylor Bias. So it'll be another don't miss lineup in March, it's Thursday, not Sunday, third Thursday in March, which is the 17th again. And again, thank you so, so much to all three of you for reading your beautiful work. And thank you to our audience for staying with us. I'm going to stop the recording. If you want to stay and chat or say hello, feel free to do so. And like I said, follow us so that you can not miss other readers coming up. Thank you so much.